free and fair elections within the shortest period of time since our democratic breakthrough in 1994. However, we call on the ANC to address what now and even before emerged as a perennial problem or a weakness, which includes shortages or lack of ballot papers in certain voting districts, which in one way or the other also impacts on the number of people who participate in the election process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There was a briefing. We'll allow a platform for questions, clarities, comments. Then the leadership will respond on your issues. We'll start those who are present here. We'll join you as the second page to those who are live on Zoom. We'll tell us if there are any questions being raised on that platform. So if there are any questions for clarities, we'll start. You'll be number 1, number Sunday. You'll be number 2. You'll be number 3, number 4, number 5. Those are the 5 hands I've noted. Okay, yeah.
Based on the preliminary results that were just announced, the ANC has performed very poorly. Can we get an honest reflection of the election results from you guys?
Okay. That's a question number 1. Number 2?
Yeah, I would like to know whether which party you're gonna be in coalition with will be determined by the leadership in KZN.
Can you introduce ourselves also? Those net and also that my leadership dependula ikhumbu to bandobo zombuzo, because you can assume that is yazala sonke kanti mhlawumbe uhlala unobhala kanazi.
So the first question was from Zimasa Matiwane from the Sunday Times.
Bohan Dina from KZN FM News. Yes, I would like to know whether Ubuti Mutangana Nobani to who you form coalition with will be determined by the will take mandate from national, from the NEC, or it will be case by case, and the provincial leadership will determine who you call up with. And whether you think the failure by the ANC to convene the leadership in its regions contributed to such poor performance.
Number 3.
From Newsroom Africa. My question is to the three of you, because I think you represent the leadership of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. To what extent do you take accountability for the failures of the ANCs in this elections when you reflect on the work? What is your message to the aggrieved electorate that has clearly said that they can no longer have the ANC as their choice? And thirdly, the ANC at the national level has already come out to say they're not going to go into a coalition with the DA. In its really, it's a tough situation, and so we'd like to get clarity into that regard. Will you consider a coalition with the EFF, which has seemingly gained, become the biggest winners essentially in activity?
Number 4.
So, looking forward, what does the loss of the Etigidi Metro or not winning by majority mean for firstly the ANC's future in the province, but also secondly as leadership in the province? What does this loss mean to you personally in terms of your roles moving forward?
Okay. Number 5, Jason.
Jason from ANCA. So the first part of the question is around the causes of the poor performance. And I've heard infighting, I've heard a number of things in our discussion about what could be the causes. But these things were not just revealed now or identified now. There were lots of signs leading up to this point. We've even seen it manifest in protests outside the ANC headquarters. So do you feel that it was not addressed adequately then, or was it that the solutions that were put on the table back then to deal with these things were just not the right ones? And secondly, I think it follows on from Kosikona's question about coalitions. And are there any at this point discussions that won't be on the table? So are there certain parties that you will not be talking to at all?
Those were the first questions. We'll allow the chair and the Provincial Secretary to respond. Then if there is any follow-up, we'll take them up. Thanks.
Well, thanks. Yeah, let's welcome all your questions. The first question about an honest reflection on the election results. I'm not very certain what the question means, but let me answer it in a way I've understood it. And in case I've missed it, I'm sure the chair can then deal with it. Our own view is that we ran a campaign, which was, of course, a campaign that was within the shortest period of time ever, since 1994. And this campaign, we were also conducting it in an environment where, maybe for the first time since 1994, where the ANC had many of its structures not ready and prepared in terms of having elected regional executive committees, which commands the authority and the legitimacy to lead a campaign across the province. So these are some of the factors that probably would have somehow impacted on the performance of the African National Congress, and there may be many others that also have done that. So our own view is that the big crisis that faces black people and African people in particular in this country, of poverty, unemployment and inequality, an economy that is unable to respond to the aspirations of that population, has to a very larger extent impacted on the performance of the ANC in general, because the ANC is a governing party. And the burden of being the governing party is that anything that goes wrong in the country is blame on you. Whether you have a direct responsibility to that, or whether it has occurred on the basis of your act of omission or commission, unfortunately you become the first casualty that people are going to run to say, why did you not do something, or why did you do certain things in a particular way? So yes, we believe that these are some of the factors that have led to that situation. I'll just take one question on the issues raised by Bongani, the coalition. You know, there was a headline going on yesterday, which was a headline that is essentially a distortion of what is taking place internally in the ANC. That headline was saying that the national leadership of the ANC has mandated Comrade Jeff Radebe to drive down from Gauteng to Durban so that he can help us to finalize coalitions in the province. That's not true. Comrade Jeff is a leader of a team at a national level, which has been assigned a responsibility to look at what permutations should the ANC consider in case it must engage on coalitions. It's not a KZN issue. It's a task that he has been assigned to lead at the national level. As a province, we ourselves are identifying, we will be identifying which parties that are aligned to a larger extent, that are close to our own vision about what we want to do, which I've explained briefly in the statement, that we have an agenda that we're pursuing as the African National Congress, and certainly we would not be random in choosing a partner to work with us. We're going to have to choose partners or approach organizations on the basis of our understanding that they are also not very far from the strategic goals that we want to pursue and achieve as the ANC in the province. Maybe the last question, I will leave all these others, the chair will deal with them. And the last question is that what does the loss of Metro mean to us? I'm sure it means to us as a provincial leadership of the ANC. You see, the immediate implication of losing, of having less support in a bigger area like eThekwini is that it forces us to a deep reflection about the future of the ANC as a governing party in KwaZulu-Natal. Because we will be going to elections in 2024, and I know, and many of, I'm sure all of us in the ANC leadership would be very convinced that by the time we get to 2024, the situation that we have gone through this period would have been resolved. So the immediate implication that is of concern to us is that it creates an impression, and it sets the scene towards 2024 that the ANC, if it doesn't attend to many of the challenges that we've identified, would not be able to come back as a governing party in the province, of course. That's the implication of losing the biggest part of your province. But if you look at the results themselves, we have not entirely lost the metro, but we have lost the ability to be the governing party with 50% plus one. But we remain the leading party, both in the metro and in the province. So, but there are implications if we do not arrest the current decline going to the future, that the ANC may find itself into a very, very difficult position. So let me stop there, Comrade Marshall.
No, thanks. Thank you. I think the first will be what is the honest reflection of the ANC in the province. I think adding to what Nobala has said, there are objective and subjective factors that have led us to be where we are. And we should not be apologetic from being honest. So the honest reflection is that the ANC support-based is hurting and disappointed. And we are saying so because the ANC supporters in our stronghold didn't turn out to vote. They rather decided not to vote at all. And causal factors are the objective conditions, firstly. And those conditions is unemployment, poverty, and inequality. And the failure of the ANC to temper with these challenges and ensure delivery and improvement of the living conditions. So those are fundamental issues at an objective level. But subjectively, inside the ANC, I think issues of divisions, issues of weak structures, as said by Nobala, that in some cases we conducted elections with no structures, and issues of corruption and other weaknesses leveled against the ANC leadership are a cause of concern and the cause of that hate and dissatisfaction. So this is the honest reflection from where we stand. However, the PEC is yet to meet and take full stock of the situation. Are we taking full responsibility? If you are responsible and you are a responsible leader, you take full responsibility and become accountable, whether you succeed or you fail. And in the revolution, the leadership is more required when things are challenging. And therefore, we take full responsibility of this. We will be accounting to the membership and structures of the ANC, of whom we've been together in the campaign, because it should not be like the structures of the ANC have not been in the campaign and it's the provincial leadership only. We've all been in the campaign. But as the provincial leadership, we should be accountable. We should take responsibility of the situation, and it cannot be that things goes to this extent, then you avoid taking responsibility. So we take that responsibility. What is the message to the electorate? It's clear. We've listened, we've heard their views, their dissatisfaction, and we will, with immediate effect, regroup, respond to these key subjective and objective challenges. We have prolonged the issue of renewal. It's not going to happen overnight. It is going to be successful, but in a process of renewal, some within the movement will feel unhappy and they will protest and do a lot of things. What is the most immediate task is to renew and unite the organization. And that's what we will be doing going forward internally while we deal with these subjective issues. I think the issue of losing the support in the metro have been covered. Safe to say, you run a risk of having a lack of coherent implementation of service delivery. The metro is economic hub. The metro is the most municipality which have lot of people, and therefore to have a municipality like a metro with no outright majority party destabilize service delivery. And therefore, what guides us to coalition? Firstly, we are a party that is not driven by prevailing conditions only. We have a political perspective, and that political perspective is to deliver a society that enjoys equality, non-racial, non-sexist. So that is key, and that's why the ANC leadership is not found wanting. From national, provincial, any party that embraces racism or gender inequality will not be able to work with us. So whatever we do, but going forward, we will engage, guided also by the principle of stability, because we've seen from the previous administration of local government, most of the municipalities that were led by coalition experienced instability. They were not stable. So we would want to build stability. Once we agree with a party that we work with, we would be on the basis that there should be stability. Thirdly, there should be service delivery. Fourth, there should be clean governance. And those are principles guided by both the political perspective, but the Freedom Charter and our manifesto as the ANC. I think I've said that, and we are not in a position to say which party we will engage and which party will not engage. We are going to be driven by a political perspective that we have outlined. Thank you. I think that covers all questions. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Yes, of course.
There is one. Nkalengo 2, number 3, number 4, which will be almost the last page. Yes.
Okay. Sihle Mabuso from Independent Media. I think there will be 1 or 2 questions, but let us start it like this. I think in developed countries like your Britain, when a political party loses elections, the leadership of that party at that particular point in time, they resign. I think the recent incident was when the leadership of the Labour Party lost the elections, or let's just go to the issue of Brexit. You remember that the Prime Minister at that time resigned. And I've already noticed that some ANC members in KZN, they want you two guys out. They are blaming you for this. Because are you going to resign? What is your reaction to that? What can you say to those guys who are calling for your head right now? Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you. I am from the SAPC. In 2016, we had challenges around the candidate selection. We had promised that we were going to fix it. 2021 again, had several complaints around candidate selection. In hindsight, should you have not dealt with the issues that have been raised by members who were not happy with the candidates that you had fielded for the election?
Okay.
Yeah, so you acknowledge that the reason why people couldn't show up to vote is because they were dissatisfied with services. Given the fact that the ANC has been running KZN for quite some time, is it fair for those people to say that you were withholding our votes? Do you look at the work that you've done and think, yes, you could have done better? These people were right to do this.
I would have said it was interesting that the provincial secretary did not mention the issues that the Premier touched on, issues of corruption, service delivery, and so forth. Premier, you are saying that you are looking for stability, service delivery, and clean governance. But the argument that could be posed is that the ANC in itself is not stable because at this current point it's struggling to even pay salary. So why would people believe that the ANC would be looking for stability at municipalities with a reduced power when it itself is not stable and you fail to deliver services when you have more power? Also, you concede to the fact that one of the reasons why you performed dismally at these elections is because of the failure to deal with grievances internally within the party. So to members who might be listening to this or might be hearing this, can you give timelines as to when the party will be dealing with the agreed party members about the candidate selection process for this election?
No chair province again, I'm telling you, the premier Ayagek. You will a true house, no matter those are the questions which are follow-up questions at the last round. We allow no part of the chair to respond, then we conclude.
Well, I think thanks for the questions. I mean the question you are raising, Mavuso, and you are making an interesting scenario about what happens in UK, which I suppose emanating from your question, you probably think that that should happen everywhere in the world, largely because it is happening in the UK. We don't agree with that. There are many things that happen in the UK and in America which do not necessarily identify with our political culture and the tradition. In the African National Congress, we go to any battle or any war as a collective and as an organization as a whole. It doesn't become a personal expectation of a provincial chair or the provincial secretary or for the president for that matter. We're a collective organization, we function in that way. When there are challenges, we don't appropriate challenges to a certain individuals and tell them to leave, hoping that upon their departure problems are resolved. That's a Western kind of a system, and it's not the best system. It's Western, it happens to be done in the UK, but I don't think that you would succeed anywhere in the African continent to persuade us to embrace that European system. It's not something that I think many of us will ever be willing to. So I have not heard, you are saying you have heard many voices. I don't know, maybe these voices are voices that were talking directly to you. I haven't heard many voices in the province that have made a call for myself and the provincial chair to resign. Certainly not from members of the African National Congress. And as you know, nobody would be entitled to call for the resignation of the provincial chair and myself unless they belong to the ANC and unless they are mandated by structures of the African National Congress. So if you are saying we have heard some voices, I don't know. These voices have not really, we have not heard about them. They may be loud, but to the extent that you have heard them, we haven't heard them. If they happen to be voices that we will hear as well, we will respond to them, because we would want to understand what is it that makes them to believe that the only way to solve these many and complex challenges we're explaining here is merely a departure of the chair and the secretary, and that once they are gone, all of these things are resolved. So that's the point I wanted to make about that. Maybe the second point I'm going to respond to is the one that was raised by Ayanda. Ayanda, you are quite right in a sense that we had many problems in 2016, far more than what we had now. We also lost many comrades who were candidates, who were leaders of our movement, far more than what has happened now. Our own view is that if you compare 2016 and 2021, despite the fact that the period at which we're dealing with problems in 2021 was very short, if you compare, we are of the view that we've done very well in terms of running a process that is not heavily contaminated by disputes and grievances. Yes, of course, there are still outstanding grievances and concerns, and that is why on the eve of the election, the national leadership made an announcement that once we're done with the elections, the leadership through the PLCs in provinces and the electoral committee led by Comrade Khalima Mtlante will then deal with these matters. And I'm sure that that commitment was not just a a statement we're making because we wanted to go to elections with lesser noise about problems internally in the ANC. It's a commitment. It will have to be revisited, but I can confirm to you that even when it is revisited, you are going to find that the problems, if you compare with 2016, including where there may be a need for certain wards to be restarted, will be far less. Because we ran a process that was very democratic, very open, which allowed the involvement of the communities. And that is why in many cases, I mean, out of 901 wards where we've contested, I think if there are disputes to be considered now, there will not be more than 5% of that. And part of what we identified, which is the last addition I want to make, is that some of the disputes, you will find that the PLC says we have received 200 disputes. But as they analyze them, they realize that you'll have 20 or 10 or 4 or 5 coming from the same branch. Because people who are not happy are more than one in one branch. So they decide that, well, I must write and he writes and somebody else does so. So we are very confident that even in instances where there may need to be interventions, which will be informed by the hearing of those disputes and decisions that will be made by both the PLC and the Electoral Committee, but it will not be anywhere closer to what we experienced in 2016. And therefore, what does that mean? Is that we had problems in 2016, we still had problems in 2021, but far more less and better than the situation in 2016. And therefore, we're on the journey with difficulties, but less than what we experienced the day before yesterday and yesterday. Thanks, and let me leave the other questions to the chair.
No, thanks. The first one, we could have done better. Well, I think honestly, the electorates are saying we are concerned. There are issues that you should address. We're living in poverty. There's a growing number of unemployment and people are getting unemployed. And that on its own causes social distress. Now, are there programs to address this? Yes, there are. But such programs have not been fast enough. And therefore, we should expedite the implementation of all programs and interventions that seek to address unemployment and ensure that people get employed and there is stability. But also people are concerned about services. Where we are in charge, we will ensure that services are improved and are provided at a quality level. So that's what I think we should, as the movement, do going forward on that issue. The ANC is not stable because it can't pay salaries. I don't know whether the question is in proper context. I once read a book saying, poor but rich in the soul, at the soul. So, the family that is poor is not unstable. Does not mean that because you are poor, you are equally characterized by instability or that. And that's why I say the question is correct but misdirected. The phrasing and the manner in which you try to put it is not correct. The question of salaries is challenges of financial constraints. But we say we want stability when we govern. What is it that we mean? Post the era of government of national unity, there have been various coalitions. You will talk of I think it was at some point the AIFP, ANC NFP, EFF, IFP in the province, like what has been happening in some of the municipalities. What normally causes lack of stability will be lack of common vision. Common vision. So when you enter into a coalition, you should say, at least in the next 5 years, this is what should drive us. Common vision. But secondly, you should then be able to deal with interest of individuals involved, because that normally detracts and paralyzes coalitions. So I think those are key issues that we'll be looking on when we talk about stability at a government level, in as far as forming coalition. But stability in the ANC requires that we build unity, requires that we renew the organization and restore its glory. And that's a program that we have unpacked in as far as the issue of organizational renewal and unity. I believe I've covered the questions that were left from Unopala. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. One thing I think we want to emphasize, this was a local elections contested locally by local individuals. There are even dynamics and factors at that local level having implication even on the voter turnout. That's why as the ANC we have emphasized that we need to do that introspection from the branch level to the region to the province to check what went wrong. And from there, how do we turn around the corner as we move toward 2024? Because we realize that indeed something somewhere somehow did went wrong. There's a want to wait for the last one to also to conclude now.
Apologies for that. I know that our focus has mostly been on the metro, but how can we talk about it again? So I just wanted to find out in that municipality, how much of an impact did the defection of the deputy mayor have on the party? In that, what was it that went wrong there that allowed the DA to take that municipality?
Certainly, if you look in the context of Umgeni, the defection of the deputy mayor had no impact. What are issues of Umgeni is to ensure that people are provided houses, electricity, and deal with informal settlement, and then deliver jobs. What is important in Umgeni is to unite the comrades in that sub-region. Thanks.
If you follow issues of Umgeni, they're not new. From 2019, the voter turnout was telling you the story. From last year, we're dealing with the crisis of Umgeni, the protests which were led by ANC structures, not other people, revolting against the municipality. So it's not something which just came out. That's why we had to intervene as the ANC. We had to change other comrades deployed there. We removed the speaker. So we intervene because we're sensing that there is a challenge, systemic failures of leadership within the collective. Unfortunately, comrades did not take to the responsibilities, and this is where we are today. Thank you, we're done for today. Siyabonga kakhulu. Thank you.
Thank you. 5 minutes. Oh, when you very yes, Marco, I'm for the statement. You may never get it sent in a while. So, one was no ease about that. Well, someone else for the examination. Sorry.